Yeah, I mean, that's shocking, and it's interesting to hear that they're not only having issues with the cars, but there's issues in the factories producing these cars.
Yeah, it's just everywhere, just constantly in the news, it feels like.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I would say all publicity is good publicity, but I mean, racism's pretty damn bad.
Racism, secretly recording your customers,
Yeah.
crashing, self-driving vehicles crashing. I don't think any of this is very good stuff.
No,
right
I think
now.
that's pretty bad across the board.
Yeah. So anyway, and in fact, I need to I'd be car shopping, in fact, this week, but I don't think I'm going for Tesla.
Prioritizing profits. Prioritizing
Dangerous drug and product cases.
Welcome back, everyone. Another episode of Prioritizing Profits, Dangerous Drug and Product Cases.
Welcome.
Back for another episode.
Back on track. We're not missing anymore.
Yeah, no, and it's nice kind of getting into the habit of it where you always know on a certain day you're going to start recording. You kind of get the brain juices flowing, get a little hyped up.
You get yourself ready to travel down, stop at In-N-Out, get all fed and watered and ready to entertain.
It's a ritual now because I drive down from Phoenix to Tucson, and at Florence, the halfway mark essentially, there's an In-N-Out. And obviously there's In-N-Outs all across Arizona, even obviously in Scottsdale as well, but the lines are absolutely insane. Like the closest one to me is right next to ASU, which is absurdly packed, and I can't stand waiting in those long lines. And the one in Florence never has a line. So it's a ritual that every time I drive down and drive back, stop at In-N-Out, get a nice burger, high quality, fresh, cheap. What is it? A burger and fries, $7.
I swear, this sounds so familiar. I think, you must have some deal with them because you are definitely promoting it.
I mean, last time, I think I talked about it last time.
I think you did.
Big Macs are $11, and that's just the Big Mac. Yeah.
That's insane.
And the quality is just half as good.
$11. I mean, I seriously haven't been to a McDonald's, and I didn't even know how long. But I can't believe $11. That's outrageous.
Yeah. But getting into the episode, I mean, one thing that I was kind of thinking about, because I always like kind of starting off the episode with something maybe not completely law-based, a little bit more casual, a little bit more personal. And I was talking to my friend this week, Andrew Slackett. And
also known as Z. I mean, I never hear you use his name.
No, yeah, he goes by Z. But one thing that I asked him, I was like, do you ever, when you're laying in bed, you think back to like an embarrassing moment or like a cringy moment, something that gives you anxiety or that you were just really embarrassed and you just wince, like it's a little painful, kind of hurt. You're like, oh God, like. I wish I didn't do that. I wish that didn't happen, or that was a tough time. And realistically, a lot of those situations, they really don't matter in the scheme of things. But you think back to like that moment itself,
and you can't get it out of your head.
Yeah,
it visits you at night.
No, it does, and usually there's a bunch of different ones. But especially when you're laying in bed and you're just hanging out, getting ready for sleep, and the little intrusive thoughts, they hop in there. And I was asking you about it before the show, and I guess Sarah Showered, one and only, doesn't have any of these embarrassing, rough moments here.
No way. No, I have lots of them. I was just trying to think. And in fact, I think for the first thing I said was most of them were involved back when I was drinking. And so.
Yeah, that's an easy precursor.
Yeah, definitely. And I do have some. I definitely do have some. But it was kind of a spur of the moment thing. So I'll probably share next week some more, or maybe as you're telling me, because obviously you're just dying to tell us something.
I am.
I mean, you're just bursting at the seams. You've got so maybe after that, some will come back to me.
Yeah, it'll get your brain running. So I was driving down, and I was, you just kind of get in your thoughts when you're driving, and I thought of this moment, and I was like, oh, God, that was a rough one. And it was in high school, and it was my senior year. And you have electives, and usually, obviously, your senior year, you want to pick the class that's the easiest. That you don't really got to do any work, easy A, whatever you got to do.
Yeah, biding time.
And I picked drama because drama, teacher was awesome, very easy, and the only requirement for the entire year, because you could kind of just mess around in class, the only requirement was that you had to do one public performance throughout that semester. And it could be anything. It could be at like a school meeting. It could be at, we had a lot of band nights or like play nights, and there'd be kind of like pre-shows. And so there might be little skits before that. And oh my God, I'm getting a little nervous just thinking about it now. Yeah. So, I've always been good at public speaking too, because I did mock trial, and I always thought it would be very easy. Just an easy thing. You hop up there, you give a few lines. And I remember we had a play, and I had one line in the play, and I was thinking in my head, I was like, this is cash money. This is free, just a free A right here. And back then, I might have been a little bit of a smoker, partaked in a little bit of marijuana here or there. And I got ready for the play. We had been rehearsing for about a few weeks, like a month, getting ready.
Can I just ask, what was the play?
So I don't even remember. It was based on Apple products. And in the play, I was someone that was, a massive Apple fan, diehard Apple fan. And I was sleeping outside of the store waiting for the newest product.
It's not so far off, maybe.
Which I think was like an iPad or something like that.
Back in the day.
Yeah. And I only had one line, and I can't even remember what exactly the line was. I think.
Imagine that.
Yeah. And I think it was something along the lines of like, I was fake being asleep, and, people were walking by talking to me, and they mentioned Apple, and I'm like, oh, Apple? Oh my goodness. I love Apple. I always wait in line for their products. I can't wait for this new blah, blah, blah iPad to come out. I've been waiting here all night. Real easy. Just like that. I'm pretty sure that was pretty close to the line. And I was getting ready for the play, right? It was after school. Might have smoked a little bit, thinking, oh, who cares,
Confession time.
No big deal. We get there. We set up. I'm on a chair. Got someone right next to me, faking asleep. Curtain opens up. And as soon as it opens up, the lights are insane. If you've never been on a theater stage, it's like overwhelming.
Super hot, right?
Yeah, it's hot, and like you can't even see the audience. It's like blinding. And as soon as my eyes are closed, and as soon as it opens, I'm like blinded with my eyes closed, and I can like hear the people rumbling and everything. And immediately I feel my body shaking. Like my entire, like I was like actually shaking. I was like, oh my God, like what is this? My legs, your legs where you kind of like, if you tap your feet a little bit, they were just like shaking like that normally. And my line comes up, I wake up, I'm like, oh, I love Apple. I always wait in line for it. Completely blanked. And I just sat there for a second. I love Apple. I always wait for their, couldn't think of it. I said it a third time.
Oh my God.
A third time. I reset it. And at this point, everyone around me, right? There's like 5 other people on stage.
Are they whispering or something?
So I say it the third time. I'm like, I love Apple. Always love their... And then, and at this point, they start feeling bad. I can hear the audience. The person right in front of me that I'm talking to starts whispering, you love Apple products. You love iPads. And I was like, I was literally shitting my pants. I couldn't do it. And I reset it again for the 4th time. I love Apple products. And then I remembered it. And I said it, I love Apple products. I always wait in line. I can't wait to get this new iPad, blah, blah, blah. And walk off the stage. And oh my God. It was like just scarring embarrassment. And it was all the parents, a bunch of kids and everything. And realistically, it doesn't matter. Like looking back on it now, it's no big deal. No one gave me shit about it. I don't think anyone even remembers it.
But you're reminding everybody now.
Well, because
anybody who missed it now could be a part of this whole embarrassing experience.
I was just driving down and I thought of it. I was like, wow. That was a tough moment. That just gives me a little anxiety to just think about how I felt at that time.
Wow. And it's so interesting, too, because like you said, you're like so good at public speaking, and usually you're like super calm. And then apparently you were also smoking on top of that. But,
yeah.
I would think that might relax you, too.
No, it just gives me anxiety. I think that was the issue. Like it made me more nervous, more anxious, and my memory wasn't on par. And even my drama teacher came up to me after and was like, what, Ben, what happened? I thought you were good at public speaking. You do it with mock trial all the time, right? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Just, I guess I woke up on the wrong side of the bed that day.
Wow. Well, that's not necessary to call you out on it. It's not like you didn't know. It's not like.
Well, I think she was just curious. At that point, I'm a senior. You have certain expectations upon you to be a functioning member of society. Maybe you remember a singular line with, after practicing for a few months. I think it was a reasonable question first. What the hell's going on here?
So does that have something to do with you didn't pursue drama after that?
Oh, no. I mean, when you go on stage, even seeing all the like bright lights and everything, immediate anxiety. And with mock trial, I remember, I love doing it.
Seemed super smooth with that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, once you get up there, I would just kind of go numb. But leading up to it, every single day on like the presentation day, which for anyone's unfamiliar, it's essentially just kind of, being a lawyer, but with a bunch of high school students. And it all builds up to a singular day where you go against a bunch of other teams in your prosecution or your defense. Every single day, or like that one day every single year, I would throw up in the morning. I couldn't eat. I never ate. I would struggle to eat dinner. I wouldn't eat breakfast. And then I would get there, and minutes before we go up, like as we're walking to the courtroom, I would run to the bathroom, throw up, come back out.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think you told me that. I knew you weren't eating much, but I don't think I knew you were throwing up.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like water, I'd just dry heave a little bit of bile would come out, but then I would feel better. I would feel a little bit more, less queasy, and I would still be like so nervous, shit in my pants, a little shaky when I'm sitting at the counsel's desk. But as soon as you walk up there, still a little nervous for the first question, but once you get through that first question, you kind of just get into that rhythm.
Yeah.
And that's what I always loved, is you kind of get in the flow of things.
Yeah. What's interesting, because when I was doing trials more often, I mean, it was very similar. I mean, over all the years, the first time I was just absolutely petrified and probably shaking and the whole 9 yards. But throughout the years, even, leading up to the trial, I always knew I was going to lose 5 pounds. I mean, that was kind of cool, because literally I couldn't eat that day. And then you're super busy during the trial. And so I would have like a Slim Fast or a Power Bar or something at lunchtime just to kind of pound that down and have energy. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't eat. And I guess similarly, you're very, very nervous. But then once you get up and you start talking, again, you're, like you said, you're in the flow. And at that point, I mean, you don't have time to be nervous. You've got to do your job, right?
No, it's do or die.
So yeah, exactly.
And I think like one of the best parts too is when you're done, like the euphoria of like all that stress and anxiety, and that you did a good job all hits you at the same time, and it's like almost like a high. You're like, holy shit.
No, that's exactly how it is after a day of trial. I mean, same thing. You're just absolutely terrified. Oh my God. Oh yeah. I'm so stressed out, and I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And then after, you're like, wow, I kicked ass. That was awesome. I'm great at this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No one else could do this. I'm nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, up until the last trial I think I had, I would still get very nervous. I do remember at one point somebody told me that, because I thought, is this normal? Should I still be getting nervous? I've been doing this, 10, 15, 20, 25 years at one point, and I don't know, 35 or whatever. But, and I remember, this was when I was still a younger attorney, and an older attorney said to me, if you don't get nervous, you're not doing it right. You don't care enough. And so, and he had said that he gets nervous every single time also. And I always felt better about that. And I thought, okay, it's not going to go away. I'm just going to be nervous, lose a few pounds.
Yeah. I always wondered that as well, as like, if it's something that you in your head you think you love and that you're good at, why are you so nervous? Why is it the same for other people? And I remember I looked it up on YouTube. I love watching YouTube videos, TED Talks especially.
Oh yeah, those are awesome.
And there's a video on public speaking, and the guy was saying how he interviewed a bunch of comedians, and I think one of them was Dave Chappelle. Massive guy, right? He's done hundreds and hundreds of shows. Everyone knows he's good. He knows he's good. He gets paid the big bucks. But before every show, he throws up.
Wow.
Every show, he's so nervous, he just throws up, and then he goes out there and he kills it. And then he's being one of the top comedians in the world. And something else, I think it was from somewhere else, I heard, the line between excitement and nervousness, anxiety, is a very thin line. And sometimes it's so thin you can't even tell which is which. You can be excited for something, but it feels like nervousness. You feel a little bit of anxiety, but realistically, deep inside, it is just excitement for the next day.
Right. That's interesting. I listen to Glennon Doyle's podcast a lot, We Can Do Hard Things, and she uses this term skited. And so it's a combination of scared and excited, and it's a different kind of scared. It's not a bad scared, like something horrible is going to happen to you. It's the skited, scared and excited. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at.
Yeah, exactly. And it's weird to think about too. Is like when you're doing something that you really love, and maybe especially for you, right? Like you were working for so long to become a lawyer, and you finally get to that point. You're working in trials. That's kind of like the top goal there for a lot of people. and it still feels like kind of shitty. Feels terrible the day before.
Well, I'm like, why am I doing this? Why in the world did I think I wanted to do this? And then that day you're like, this is why I wanted to do this. Exactly. Yeah. But I think too, if you really care, I think that if I just didn't give a shit, I wouldn't be nervous. But you don't want an attorney who doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially when you have high expectations for yourself, which I know both of us do.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's almost fear of not meeting my expectations.
Right.
Like, even if I know I did a decent job, a solid job, and other people will tell me, if I don't feel like I lived up to my own expectations or hit as high as I could have, then, I'll get anxiety about it. I'll be a little frustrated and maybe not as happy as I could be.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Anyways, I guess we should probably hop into the main topics of the show.
All right. Well, and I will think this week about actually, maybe I'll just stay up and cringe about things, and I'll report back to you.
I always wonder if it was something that, other people felt, if other people are laying in bed at night and they just wince a little bit, at something that happened years ago. I mean, this, the example I gave was 5-6 years ago, at least. Maybe longer, 7-8. And, I was talking to my friend. He's like, oh, yeah, I do that too. So I thought it would be a good thing to bring up. Maybe some of the audience has that.
Yeah, well, definitely. Tell us your cringe-worthy, wake you up in the middle of the night
The most
stories.
embarrassing moment of your life. Post it in the comments, please.
Awesome. Make sure to use your real name.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, let's get into some more relevant stuff.
Yeah.
While we're here. Okay, so interesting cases in the news. I don't know how interesting this is. We talked last time about, I had just seen a headline before we started the podcast last time, and I think I told you that product recalls were at a high for this last quarter, and so we were going to touch on that. And so I dove into this a little bit more. And it's actually a 4-year high in general. So I was thinking it was the highest ever. It's actually not. But the interesting thing about it is that there are all of these different categories of recalls, and there's increases in all of them. So overall, there's an increase of 14.2%. And that's the highest single quarter total in 4 years. And there's different kinds of recalls. Like there's automotive recalls. We've talked about that. Those are up 3.4%. Consumer product, those were the most recalls in a single quarter since 2015. FDA, so Food and Drug Administration recalls, 23% increase.
It's crazy.
Yeah, medical device recalls up 4.6%. And kind of on our topic, pharmaceutical recalls had the most in a single quarter for the last 18 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it's interesting to me that there's all of these different categories are having increases. So, what is going on that would cause so many products to be recalled? And, the report doesn't talk about that. So it's interesting that all of these different categories had increases. And again, they didn't really talk about exactly why. One of the possibilities is with electrical vehicles. That's kind of a newer thing, and it's a very new technology. Yeah. So there's a lot of issues with that. You've heard with Tesla and that sort of thing.
But that I guess that could explain the automobile section of it, but it seems like it's just across the board. With the FDA, right. I think it was 23%. That's almost a fourth increase.
Yeah. It is across the board. And so that's the question is, are people just being super sloppy?
Yeah.
What's going on? Are they trying to get away with more? Is the enforcement better? Are people reporting more? I don't know what the answer to that is.
I was going to say there's two options in my head, and it's either, products are just being made shittier. And
I think that's probably true.
Less care, and they're trying to go for the cheapest option, which is reasonable. Maybe not reasonable, but
reality.
Yeah, reality. Or is there just higher scrutiny, higher expectations, more people looking out for it and keeping an eye on it? Mm-hmm. And maybe, more than likely, it's probably a gray area of a little bit of both.
Yeah. Yeah, more lawyers pursuing these cases, more podcasts alerting people to the problem so that they're aware of it. Yeah. I don't know. We could be playing a part in this.
One of the reasons, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, they're expecting issues with electrical vehicles because that's a newer technology.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And then the FDA has outlined a list of topics that it plans to tackle in 2023. including allergens, dietary supplements. We talked about that
Yeah.
a little bit last time. In infant formula, that's been a big thing
So it sounds
for a
like
while now.
they are actually like actively looking for more possible issues in kind of the overall industry.
Right. I think like areas of concern where there have been a lot of issues, they're
Yeah.
looking at, perhaps more regulations,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
So it's probably going to get even higher, right?
Well, it sounds like it, yeah. And, with the public health, this whole COVID-19 thing officially ended, they're able to take a much closer look. One of the topics that I think is going to be kind of a hot topic is all of the cannabis. Because it's legal in many states now and really enhancing the regulations and that sort of thing. So I don't think the numbers are going to go down. It sounds like, but I mean, hey, at least we're keeping an eye on things and
Yeah, I mean, it's good to hear that they are actively kind of keeping an eye out in these sectors that they already know are there is problematic.
yeah.
But it's insane hearing just the overall increase in percentage of recalls.
I mean, it didn't go down in one single area.
Yeah, and for these recalls, is it just, I know there's some product recalls where it's just, hey, get it out of your house, get it off the shelves.
Yeah.
We're not going to sell it anymore. But then I know with like a lot of the automobile recalls, you bring it into the shop and they'll switch out a part, and
Yeah.
then you can drive away with the same product.
Yeah, a lot of them, they are simply repairs, or like with the Tesla ones, they change out the software, that sort of thing. But then some of them are things that you literally can't use them. We talked about some of the baby products
Yeah.
and those types of things.
Yeah, and I heard with the Teslas as well as, I've always been a big fan of Tesla. I wanted a Tesla, but I've heard from people that own it is that the interior is very cheap. A lot of the materials that they use and just kind of the way that it's put together is very cheap. The insides of the car, like the actual engine and everything, solid, great, high quality.
Yeah.
But when it comes like the cup holders and the little things like that,
So not very luxurious.
yeah, no, I mean, it has a luxurious look, but the
Right.
actual quality of the items in there apparently is not the best.
Interesting. Well, actually, the next topic is Tesla. But before we go there, I do want to just kind of go over, since we were talking about recalled products, and some of this is a reminder, some of it may be new, but just how you can protect yourself from dangerous products, recalled products. And the first thing we had talked about this before is register your products. And I know you're going to say you don't do it, you're never going to do it, you're never going to sit it.
I would refuse.
I know, you're not going to do that. But for anybody else who actually is concerned about their safety, you might want to register your product. That way you know that you're going to be alerted, you're going to be notified if there is a recall. You can get alerts. You can go to recalls.gov, and that you can sign up there, and that actually combines recalls from a variety of different places: National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Department of Agriculture, Food and Drug Admin. So there are, instead of having to sign up for each one, you can just go to that one site, and that's real helpful. Again, we had talked about this with regard to some of the baby products, but if you're buying something secondhand, research it.
Yeah.
Because, of course, you're not going to have that card. You're not going to be able to register. And, you do want to know if that product has been recalled.
Well, and I'm curious because you kind of mentioned the notifications, right? If there's a product that has a recall and if you kind of register, then you get that notification. I wonder, is there anything that kind of just notifies you whenever there's any type of recall? Other than this fantastic podcast.
Always listen here.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that website is going to be the best. I mean, you can go onto these individual websites, but the recalls.gov is going to combine them. So that's probably the safest.
Yeah. I would imagine like almost an iPhone app that gives you a little notification. Hey, this baby stroller just got recalled. Keep an eye out.
I mean, honestly, that could be kind of annoying because it's like
There's that many.
Well, we just talked about how many there are.
That's
When you're
true.
bang, 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 bang,
Yeah.
bang.
I mean, for people that are worried, might be a little paranoid. It might be good for them. You never know.
Yeah, but I mean, in a lot of these recalls, it's like, oh, there's tree nuts in this product, and you're like, I don't care. So I think if it's a product that you have in your home, you might want to just check it out. But I don't think you want to be notified about every single item. But
That's fair.
once in a while, you could go on and check it out.
Yeah, I mean, even with registering, I feel like, if you just go to Target and you buy, impulsively buy maybe 5 or 10 products, you're not going to go online for each one of those and register it. Is there maybe certain areas or certain types of products that you would recommend people actually, if they're going to register, they should do it for those ones?
Well, I think anything that potentially can be dangerous, and a lot of these baby items. I mean, baby cribs, baby toys. It's like those the strollers, car seats, things like that. I mean, anything that you're counting on it to be safe. I think that's more important.
That makes sense. Safety items.
Yeah, those sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean, for example, like the frozen strawberries that we talked about a few weeks ago, or I think the Tide Pods, not Tide Pods, the dishwasher pods.
Okay, those haven't been recalled.
But
You just have to wear protective eye gear.
yeah, protective eye gear when doing dishes. That should be on the box. Those are type of the items that I wouldn't even think to like look up or to register, and I wouldn't be aware of, except for for the strawberries. There's a sign at Trader Joe's that was giving a heads up to people, and thank God they do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but assuming you go back to Trader Joe's, what if you were just in there one time, bought the strawberries, and
True.
You've got them in your freezer? Yeah. So, but and again, these things do come out in the news. They do, particularly the really dangerous ones.
Yeah.
But it's brief. I mean, it's it's in the news one day, and we're on to something else the next day.
Yeah.
So if you don't catch it, you don't catch it. But and that kind of goes back to the secondhand goods too. Why it's so important is that somebody bought this product. It's in the news that it's very dangerous. It's now at a secondhand shop, and it's a year later. And so it was never returned, and it's out there in the stream of commerce, and you don't know. So again, any kind of secondhand product anything, if it involves a baby, I'm going to be double checking on it. Not that I have any babies anymore, but.
No, that's fair. I feel like, especially with kids, you want to be extra careful.
Yeah.
But it seems like the most reasonable thing is to kind of go to that website. What was it again?
Yeah, recalls.gov.
Recalls.gov.
Yeah.
And if there is any products you might be worried or concerned about, that's a place to look it up.
Yeah. And then just kind of one last thing. If you do have a product that you have a problem with, make sure that you report it.
Yeah.
Because that's key. I mean, if people don't report it, we don't know. And I mean, we know that manufacturers aren't always the best at reporting the problems that they're aware of. So, we all need to do everything that we can to make sure everybody's safe out there.
Very true. Very true. And always tune in because we'll give you the latest scoop on recalls.
You are so self-promoting today. I like it, I guess.
And you mentioned this earlier, Tesla.
Yeah, Tesla's like big in the news lately. Big in the news. So we've heard for a while now about the problems with the self-driving features where there's accidents. And then they actually recalled them back in February of this year, changed out some of the software. People got all upset because they bought this vehicle. They wanted that. They wanted that service, the self-driving, and then they had to disable it, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of issues on that. Another Tesla issue, and this one, it's a little bit amusing, but not really, I guess. So privacy issues. I guess that there are cameras where they can record in the vehicle.
Really?
Yeah. And I guess what was happening was that employees were accessing these videos, and if they were funny or entertaining or interesting, circulating them among themselves.
That's actually hilarious. Well, why is there even cameras in the vehicle in the first place? Is there some type of product use for it?
Well, I don't know. Why is there like karaoke in the vehicle? I mean, they have a speaker on the outside of the car so that you could do karaoke. I don't know why any of these things are in there.
I think if you want to have a good time and do karaoke with the boys and you don't want to go to the bar, maybe there's no karaoke bars around, so you just pull up in the Tesla, hey, everyone come by.
Well, and you can just drive by and everybody can hear you. I mean, then there's it's like a speaker on the outside of the vehicle. So I've heard about that. I had a friend who was telling me how when she wanted to like embarrass her daughter picking her up at school, she'd just pull up and,
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I like that. That's pretty insane, though, that the employees were accessing and sending around. I mean, it kind of sounds like almost like America's funniest videos.
Well, there probably is some really funny, crazy shit that people do in their cars. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure people are smashing in their cars as well. And then it's just like, oh, well, that's just going around the office now.
What's smashing?
Like hooking up or doing.
Really?
You never know. I mean, shit.
Well, we talked about one of our earlier episodes. We talked about the whole case where they tried that the woman was exposed to a sexually transmitted disease in a vehicle and wanted to collect from the insurance policy for her damages. So I guess people do smashing cars. This is a new term.
That's
I
fair.
knew hooking up.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that always makes I always tell people this, like this talking. We're talking.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand this because, I mean, seriously, we've had this discussion and I'm like, are you dating? No, we're talking.
Yeah, you're just talking.
And I'm like, well, are you having sex? And you said yes. And I said, well, That's more than talking.
Well, maybe you talk during it. It's different for everyone. Talking is it's very it's like a comfortable word to use. It's a very much like a gray area. You don't have to say it's this, it's that. It's a very much like interpretive. And so it's
Well, couldn't dating be too? I mean, dating could be, casual dating to be practically engaged or whatever. I mean, there's no,
well,
it seems like there's a big spectrum there too.
there is, but I would say more with like current day and my generation, dating is like if you start dating, you're not talking to anyone else. You're not doing anything with anyone else. You don't have interest in anyone else. It's, just a one-on-one thing, which, I think back in the day, dating could be, I took him out for milkshakes at the old drive-through.
Okay, well, yeah, so back in my day, you could be dating more than one person.
Oh, see, yeah, that seems a little precarious.
Well, it was always precarious, but yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is you say you're dating several people now. They're like, well, do they know?
Well, but then you would say, well, we're dating exclusively.
Okay.
Or then, of course, then we're going to go way back. You were like going steady.
Going steady, yeah. I gave him the promise ring. That's how you know it's a real deal.
You wore the high school ring on your necklace, on your chain around your neck. Oh, okay. That's making me feel really old. All right. So that's not all the problems with Tesla.
Okay. Let's hear it.
So actually, most recently, they've had a couple of racial discrimination lawsuits.
Really?
Yeah, big time. In fact, there was a $3.2 million verdict.
Wow.
For a black employee, and apparently at the main factory, it's just awful. I mean, they are just treat people horribly. And again, I'm just saying what was alleged in the lawsuit, and that apparently the jury believed, because $3 million of that was punitive damages against Tesla.
Wow.
So, and the issue with that, he was definitely harassed, and he reported the harassment, and nothing was done to correct it. And then after that, there's another case that was actually filed back in 2017 alleging the same issues, and they now want to turn that into a class action.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was one individual who had filed a lawsuit and now is saying this should actually be a class action. And in support of making it a class action, he provided 240 affidavits from other employees who all had experienced, horrible racist behavior. In fact, they say it's a hotbed for racist behavior.
Yeah, so I'm a little confused here. It's in the factory specifically that it seems like it's
on the production floor.
Yeah,
apparently.
especially prevalent there.
Yeah.
And it's just straight up, people being racist.
Well, some of the quotes were that they would use the N-word. They would call him, quote, boy or monkey.
Jesus.
Referred to a woman as having monkey toes. And just horrible things along those lines. And again, you're always going to have some idiot, perhaps employee doing this kind of stuff, but it's incumbent upon the management, and if this gets reported, you need to stop it. You need to fire the person who's exhibiting this behavior, not the victims, obviously.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and it makes it even worse, obviously, and this is why it's turning a case, is that they did complain to management and nothing happened about it. And when you first said that there was, issues with employment at Tesla, it kind of made me think of, the issues when Elon Musk took over Twitter. He deleted. He fired, almost like half the staff, apparently. So, I mean, it seems kind of like a common trend. I'm sure hopefully he didn't have anything to do with some of this behavior going on in the warehouses.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any indication that he personally did.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting because so this could become an actual class action, which is not kind of the norm in a racial discrimination type of case. But I guess there's so many people out there. And I guess I can tell you one of the benefits of a class action is that people don't have to come forward personally and testify and actually participate and put on evidence. Basically, everybody who would fall into that class, which would be, employees, within this, racial group who were employed during that time would be entitled to some compensation. It's generally pretty low in a class action. But even if this does become a class action, if somebody did experience discrimination, they could file their own individual lawsuit. They wouldn't have to be part of the class action. They would opt out.
Yeah.
And that would actually be something they would actively have to do if it gets certified as a class. Then anybody who wants to sue individually has to actually technically opt out.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised when you said that this was turning into a class action because, I mean, this type of employment discrimination, at least I haven't heard of any type of class action that.
Yeah, it's really unusual, but I guess it's because it was so rampant. I mean, usually you hear, one case here, one case there, that sort of thing, but not, I mean, 200, they're saying that up to 6,000 people would be eligible,
Well,
potentially.
and I mean, I would assume that this would be like a singular factory, that this is especially prevalent, but it sounds like this is, every factory, not every, but a lot of them, several of them.
Yeah, I mean, it was at their main factory, and I can't recall exactly where they said that was. Fremont, California.
That was Fremont Street, Vegas.
No, God, no. Yeah, so apparently it's a real problem there.
Wow, that's crazy. So, what requires it to be, or how is it decided if it's going to be a class action? Is that a jury or is that a specific?
No, it's a
thing?
judge. So the judge would have to certify it as a class, and to go before a judge and get the judge to certify it, you have to show that there's a lot of people who are affected, and so there's apparently 6,000 employees who would fall into the category that may have experienced that discrimination, and 240 of them actually provided affidavits to say how prevalent it was. So I don't know what's going to happen on that. I'll keep an eye on it and update. But it's really interesting because, again, I haven't really seen a class action for race discrimination. They're always, you may have several plaintiffs or individual lawsuits, but this is kind of new and different to me. So I thought that was interesting. Tesla's got a lot going on these days, and none of it good.
And 240 is a shocking amount to just kind of come to the table with right off the bat.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming once people find out this is a class action and they can, voice their complaints anonymously, that number's gonna go up.
Well, and so the thing with class actions is if it gets certified, then part of what has to happen is that everybody who could possibly be in that class must be notified. And so a lot of times you'll see these, like in magazines, you'll see, they'll have a whole page talking about if you bought this product or you did this or you did that, you might be eligible. This one would be easier because, again, it's going to be actual employees and they will have names and addresses, contact for the employees, so they can send out notifications to them. And then they could, at that point, either participate in the class and basically not have to do anything.
Yeah.
The funds would get divided up.
And so even if they didn't, endure this racism or this prejudice at their job, if they wanted to be a part of it, they could, or does it?
If they fell into that class, yeah. Now, and they'll have to be, they'll have to answer certain questions, and we don't know what those questions will be because it hasn't been certified as a class, but you'd have to confirm, but it would not be anything with significant details. You're not going to have to testify. It's basically going to be filing some paperwork, and you could get compensated. But again, the numbers are going to be low on that, and if you did experience discrimination and it really affected you significantly, then you wouldn't want to be a member of the class. You would want to actually file your case individually.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting because generally you want to be part of the class, for example, with mass tort, right?
Well, so multi-district litigation is different than the class action.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the multi-district litigation, each person does have their own lawsuit filed. They're just all combined for the discovery and potentially the resolution. The class action, you're just automatically in it if you fall into that class.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything. You don't have to file a lawsuit or anything like that. Once the class is certified, then they'll send out, questionnaires to compensate.
Yeah, and so if someone experienced an extreme case of this, then they would want to do it on their own.
Yeah, if you have if you had an extreme case, you don't want to be part of the class. You want to, have your individual case.
And I'm assuming having this class action out there would help those individual cases as well. Right?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, you've got that there's at least 240 people who have come forward.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's the he said, she said, and the boss says, the employees say kind of thing. But I mean, there's a lot of people saying this was going on. I think it's pretty clear that it was a bad situation. So you're almost past that, the liability. Then you just have to establish that it actually happened to you and what your damages are.
Yeah, I mean, that's shocking, and it's interesting to hear that they're not only having issues with the cars, but there's issues in the factories producing these cars.
Yeah, it's just everywhere, just constantly in the news, it feels like.
Yeah, well, I would say all publicity is good publicity, but I mean, Racism's pretty damn bad.
Racism, secretly recording your customers,
Yeah.
crashing, self-driving vehicles crashing. I don't think any of this is very good stuff.
No,
right
I think
now.
that's pretty bad across the board.
Yeah. So anyway, and in fact, I need to be car shopping, in fact, this week, but I don't think I'm going for Tesla.
No. Oh, what are you? You were looking for an electric vehicle, right?
Well, I thought about it, but I've actually decided against it now because of, just the infrastructure isn't set up real well. And we do take a lot of road trips, and I drive a lot back and forth to Sonoyta.
Yeah.
And so, you can charge it at home, but if you're on the road, it's not that easy.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait.
One of Christina's family friends, has a Tesla, and they were driving up to California, and they had to stop for like 30 minutes to let it charge.
Yeah.
Which, if you're already wanted to stop, get some food or something, to make sense. But I would be pretty frustrated if I was trying to just power through a drive and I couldn't just stop, for 5 minutes to get some gas. I'd actually, set up camp for 30 minutes to an hour.
Well, and that's assuming you can get right in and there's one available for you to plug into. What if what if they're all being used?
Yeah.
So I think there was one of the news stations did a whole report where they tried to drive cross country and they reported on like where they could and couldn't get charges and I think I'm not ready there. I'm not ready yet. So
Makes sense. Are you going to stay loyal to the Mercedes brand?
I think so. Honestly, it's just easier because I already know I'm getting like old and I don't know. I don't like change. It's like I know the service people there and I know which side is the lights and which side is the turn signal and
that's fair. I mean, ever since I got mine, I've been a massive fan. I don't want to leave it. It's very comfortable, high quality, good product, and then also the customer service is just top tier. Like being able to take it into the dealership, they set you up with a rental, and everything's just very like hands off.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, the biggest issue really for me has always been safety. And there are certain vehicles that you're just much more likely to survive a serious crash in than others.
Yeah.
And so, and there's some real good. Volvo is really good. Also, BMW, Mercedes. I know. I haven't researched this recently. But there's some vehicles you just get in them and you kind of feel like they're a little bit flimsier, and you get T-boned and you're going to be a little nervous.
I mean, I got in the crash a few months ago, right? And coming back from recording one of these podcasts, and it felt like a little fender bender. Didn't even feel that bad.
The car was totaled. It was bad.
Totaled. I mean, that guy was on the run, probably going 50, 60, rear-ended me, and I barely even noticed airbags didn't go off, nothing.
Yeah.
I probably could have kept driving if I didn't see the cops in the rear view.
I could see in your vehicle you weren't going to keep driving. No, you weren't going to keep driving.
Yeah, the tire was pretty much off the rim there, but
yeah, I'm just glad you were okay. So
I guess a good segue into quick just updates on cases.
Well, actually, before that, since we were talking about cars, there was one other really funny thing that I saw in the news, just silly legal cases. Actually, this is a silly criminal case. Apparently, a Colorado man was getting pulled over for potential DUI. And as he got pulled over, the cop noticed that he was switching places in the vehicle to the passenger seat. But he wasn't switching with another person. He was switching with his dog. He was putting his dog in the driver's seat. Yeah. And he was getting in the passenger seat. And then he tried to tell the police officer that he wasn't driving.
No way. Was he driving a Tesla and he had the auto driving? And
No.
I mean, that's impressive. I didn't even think about it. I might have to pull that out of the back pocket when I got Bruno in my lap, just quickly throw him in there. Hey, I had nothing to do with this. This is all this guy down here over here.
Exactly. Well, and then I think that might actually be evidence that he in fact was drunk if he actually thought that the cop was going to believe him. Yeah. I mean, a sober person doesn't put the dog in to try to blame the dog.
I mean, no matter how belligerent I am, I don't think I would actually genuinely think, this might work here. I think I'm onto something.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't recommend it. But and so then when the cop did pull him over, and he was asked about how much he had to drink. Apparently, he got out and then he just started running. Yeah. But they took him down. They said within about 20 yards, they took him down. Yeah. Took him to the hospital, and he got arrested and allegedly was impaired. So,
yeah, allegedly. I mean, and no confirmation, innocent until proven guilty.
Well, he hasn't gone to trial yet. This is a recent thing. This just happened actually last month, but it was pretty funny. It was one of the most ridiculous things I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, that's even just kind of going for a run right after that as well. I can't even think.
You didn't believe the dog was driving.
He's leaving his dog behind as well.
Well, maybe the dog was with him.
I mean, maybe he ran over, let the dog out, yelled for him to come with, and just started sprinting down the road.
Or maybe the dog was pissed. He's like, seriously, dude?
Yeah. Yeah.
You tried to have me go down for this?
I mean, to be fair, he's endangering the dog as well, driving impaired like that.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
Is there like an extra charge, like animal endangerment, you could throw on there if they wanted to?
Well, that probably depends on the various states. And so in some states, animals are actually considered property. So, yeah, I know. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
So it would be a little different than like child endangerment, where if you're driving, DUI with a child, the charges are much more significant.
They are.
Pretty much in all states, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. It kind of took me back to, there's always these stories about people trying to use the carpool lanes, and you has to at least be two people, and so people have these ridiculous mannequins or dogs or
Fake babies.
Yeah, well, and then more recently, this was after the whole Roe versus Wade thing, there was a case where a woman was pregnant, and she said, well, if the law says that a fetus is a person, then I've got two people in the car.
I mean, that's kind of hard to argue with there.
Pretty good argument. I mean,
Yeah.
if this is what the law is in this state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it applies to other laws, then it should apply to this one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do you know how that turned out? That's really interesting.
I think they ended up just dismissing the ticket.
Yeah, they're like,
I
this
mean,
is too much work. This is absurd.
Well, I mean, and what is it, like a $50 ticket or some $50 fine or
No, it's
something?
400 minimum.
Oh, is it 400 for the?
Driving an HOV lane, there's a 400 minimum ticket in Arizona, at least,
How do you know this?
because it says it on when you're driving down. There's several signs to obviously try to get people to not do that. And
Yeah,
it says
yeah.
400 minimum.
Interesting. I had no idea. Yeah.
I'm assuming in states like New York, it's even worse. Where there's a higher need for HOV. I'm assuming they're probably more strict.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, and the whole purpose really is to, reduce emissions and all of this, and reduce traffic by having people commute together. And obviously, any of these things are just trying to get around the intent of the
Yeah,
law.
I mean, to be fair, the traffic can definitely get pretty rough, and
Yeah.
HOV is always a lifesaver.
Yeah.
I kind of wished Bruno would count as an individual. Hopefully he doesn't count as property in this state, so I could make that argument.
Yeah.
But then that would make things a lot easier.
But if he's driving,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. If he's driving, then he has to be a person. At that point, then they can't really argue.
I think
if
we're
they're there.
going down a rabbit hole on
Yeah,
that one.
okay.
Anyway. All right. So back to serious stuff. So updates on real cases. Well, those are real cases. They're just not real cases that we're involved in. Thank
Yeah.
goodness. So we had talked about the Tepezza litigation previously, and this is the thyroid eye disease medication that causes permanent hearing damage. And when we talked about it before, it was not a multi-district litigation. It was not consolidated. It has now been consolidated, and it's been consolidated in the Northern District of Illinois, which is Chicago. So, and just to kind of refresh anybody's memory, the benefits of the case being consolidated basically speeds things up a little bit. Probably there will be a lot more cases now filed. They will all be, within the one litigation. It's a lot less work for any individual plaintiff.
Yeah.
The likelihood of you having to actually try your case is less now. So it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. Initially, they thought it might not be because it's a drug that is not. I mean, it's not a huge, blockbuster medication. It's for a very distinct and small group of people, but a lot of those people have been affected. So apparently, there are enough people who've brought cases that it does need to be an MDL. So it wasn't real clear how that was going to go.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned too is some law firms will hold cases until they're consolidated, and then they'll kind of just throw them out there.
Yeah. So once the consolidation happens, you'll see, the numbers going up pretty rapidly.
And Tepezza, what was the problem with, or what type of drug was that again?
So Tepezza is for thyroid eye disease.
Yeah.
And so if you have, for example, Graves' disease, people will have that will get the bulging eyes, can be one of the symptoms of that disease. And it generally is more of a cosmetic issue. It doesn't, but sometimes it can affect vision, but usually if it gets very severe. But people get very self-conscious. I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of, I don't remember like Barbara Bush, she kind of had those eyes. They look,
Before my time.
yeah, well, very kind of bug-eyed. I mean, and so people are very self-conscious when they have that. And there hasn't been treatment for it before. There were kind of surgeries that could help. And so when this came out, the people who suffered from it were pretty excited about it and wanted to get it. And it's a very expensive drug and involves infusions. Yeah, it's not like a pill you take.
No, yeah.
Yeah, but then people were experiencing permanent hearing loss. Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting, and these are cases that we're taking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We are taking the Tepezza cases. If you've used this medication and experienced any issue with your hearing, it doesn't have to be complete hearing loss, but if you have any issues with that, absolutely get in touch with us. Certainly get in touch with your doctor, get tested, get your hearing tested, and discuss with your doctor if you're considering doing another round. Because again, this treatment, it doesn't fix you permanently, and so oftentimes the problem recurs, and people need to go back for more treatment. And each time you use it, it's going to increase the risk of your having hearing loss. So again, if you've used it and you've been okay, but you want to use it again, you may want to kind of reassess there, talk to your doctor about that.
And it's unfortunate that, it's trying to solve a problem, a cosmetic problem, because obviously that's something that everyone wants to fix, right? That's difficult to live with every single day. And there wasn't much you could do about it. There wasn't any medication for it. And so the first one that comes out, like you said, people are going to be excited to hop on it. They want this problem fixed. And, something as serious as infusion as well. Those aren't pleasant. You got to go into the office, sit there for a few hours, get injections. They're going through all of that, and then it ends up causing a massive problem, losing your hearing, or at least losing a lot of it. That's...
Well, and it's apparently not all that effective either. Some people don't really even see much improvement. Some people see a little improvement, but some people see temporary improvement. So again, I mean, you're taking a really big risk, so you want to make sure that the results are going to be really good and make it worth taking that risk.
And is it supposed to help with any other aspects of the disease, or is it primarily just the cosmetic bulging?
Well, so it is cosmetic, but the bulging can also cause some eye problems, some vision issues, some double vision, but that's only if it progresses to a certain point. So there's a point where it's just cosmetic, and then there's a point where it's so extreme that it's probably affecting your vision. And in those cases, where it's at that extreme level, you're going to be, more seriously considering it, even with some risks, I think. But if it's just cosmetic, and you know about this risk, then you have the information to decide if you really want to take this medication.
And this is something that's so crazy too, is that it's a drug that's primary goal is to fix this, and a lot of the time it sounds like it's not even helping those problems.
Well, maybe minimally. It helps some people more than others, and and it's a spectrum. Some it's just a small improvement, some it may be a significant improvement.
And from what we know so far, is this something that they were aware of, the loss of hearing?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, if they weren't aware of it, then there wouldn't be a lawsuit. But the information indicates that they did know about it and that they failed to warn.
Wow.
So
didn't even
I mean,
warn
that's
about that.
that's the key.
I mean, that is a massive thing that would sway my opinion personally. Is losing your hearing, or at least losing some of it. That's pretty big.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, that's moving forward, and that actually just happened this last week.
Yeah.
All right. So another case that we talked about just recently, I think last week or the week before, are the CPAP machines. And those are the machines that help you to breathe during the night while you sleep. And those were recalled back in 2021. The FDA just released an updated safety communication about the CPAP this week. And the update is basically talking about a number of additional deaths that have occurred. And just kind of as a refresher, the problem with the CPAP machine is that the foam that's used to reduce sound and vibration can break down, disintegrate, and people can inhale pieces of the foam or gases, and then that's causing some really horrible diseases, a variety of cancers, upper respiratory issues, that sort of thing.
And you mentioned they were even like finding pieces of that foam in their lungs.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
insane.
yeah. It's definitely bad stuff. But the numbers actually have been pretty significantly updated. And let me just tell you what those are. They are now up to 385 actual deaths.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And let's see, over 105,000 reports of injuries now.
Wow.
So these are, and again, these are conditions that you don't know that you have right away. Most of the cancers, they take a while. And so people may have been using these, or they may have actually been diagnosed with a cancer, but they would never have related it back to their CPAP machine.
Yeah.
So this is a pretty hot litigation right now. A lot of cases getting filed, a lot of people making that connection, realizing that the problems they're having could be related, filing lawsuits, or knowing that they were at risk using the machine, and now they're starting to get the diagnoses.
Well, and it makes sense too, because from what we talked about, in the original podcast when we went over this, is sleep apnea. That's relatively common, happens to a lot of individuals, and these CPAP machines are like the only thing that they can do. And there's not really any other products out there at the moment that can help with it. And so they're almost forced to use this. And, I know the recall, they're sending it back and trying to replace the material, but even some of the new material doesn't seem to be completely better.
Yeah, I mean, there are some things that you can do, and there are some other, there's all kinds of products that say that they're going to help you, but nothing as significant as this actual CPAP machine. And then there are lifestyle things that you can do also that can minimize the risks when you're sleeping. But a lot of people don't want to do this. They want the easy out. They want to just
I can't blame them for that.
just put the scuba machine on, and then you can eat all you want and drink all you want. And
one thing that I think is crazy too is you mentioned over 100,000 injuries. And when it comes to injuries, it can be a full spectrum of things, right?
Yeah.
It can be to the most minor things all the way into, your life being at risk with a serious cancer. And so I think that's really hard to kind of imagine and almost put into perspective, is that when you hear, 350 deaths, something, I think it was around there, but 100,000 injuries, a lot of these injuries could be so extreme that they eventually will lead to death.
Well, so 105,000 reported injuries, but most people don't report them. So you got to realize that if there's 105,000 reported, it's like sending in those cards. You don't do it. Most people don't report the injuries. That's we keep asking people to do that, but so there's probably a lot more. And if people do report it, it's probably not allergies or a cold. It's probably something pretty significant.
Yeah, that's fair.
So to be fair, I really think that these are going to be pretty significant injuries, and there's a lot more of them. There are millions of these machines.
Wow.
So there's a lot more, but this was just an actual update that the FDA issued to kind of give a status on what's going on with this recall. And it's getting worse. It's not, it's not resolving, and it's not going to, because, like as you said, these machines are still out there. People are still using them because they can't sleep, they can't function if they don't use them. And it was such a massive recall that the company couldn't provide these new filters fast enough, the new foam. So people were basically stuck continuing to use it, even knowing that they were potentially inhaling carcinogens.
Yeah, that's terrifying. The fact that even if you tried to send it back and get a replacement, the company doesn't even have the ability to make as many as people are sending them back.
They're way behind on doing that, and definitely still working to do that.
And it sounds like if you have sleep apnea and you have used this machine, or you currently using it, even if you aren't facing any issues at the moment, like you said, a lot of them might not come up for several months, a few years.
Yeah.
So it's something that you want to get checked out very early on, and like any cancer, if it is cancer, you want to find that right away.
Well, and you want to let your doctor know too, because historically they ask about certain risk factors, but to my knowledge, they never ask about CPAP machines before, and now that's going to be potentially one of the risk factors for a lot of different kinds of cancers.
Wow.
So definitely mention to your doctor that you do use this product if you've been using it.
And people should be reaching out to attorneys if they're using it, or if they might not be facing issues, just to see if they can be lumped into this class action.
Well, yeah, if you don't have any injuries, there wouldn't, and again, it's not a class action, it would be a multi-district
multi-district
litigation.
litigation.
So it is individual lawsuits. So with no injuries, we wouldn't actually file a case.
Yeah.
But again, keep an eye out because, so you might have a condition that you didn't even think was related,
Yeah.
and it could be. So any of it's upper respiratory issues, pneumonias, and then lots of cancers, and we have a list of all of those. I think I read through all of them the last time, so I won't do that again. But
Yeah.
a lot of different types of cancers that you wouldn't think. I mean, liver cancer, kidney cancer, and of course like the lung and
Maybe we'll have Fern throw
throat
in.
and nose. Yeah, definitely. We can put up a list or a link to the website, and then we have a list on there.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, like you said, 105,000 reported, and a lot of time people don't even know about it or haven't reported. And so that seems like a very high number. Is it a high number comparatively to other cases this early on?
I don't know that it's a super high number. I mean, I think it would be higher if it was something that happened right away, because let's say like there was inhalers that were recalled years ago, and people were getting infections and pneumonias and things immediately upon using them. This one, I think it's lower because the conditions, some of them happen right away, but most of them don't.
Yeah.
Most of them, are going to be dormant for, it's going to take a while.
That's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, yeah, hot stuff happening on a couple of cases this week.
And I know we're handling new cases as well. I don't know if you want to go into that.
Oh, yeah. So we've been handling social media cases for a while, but that was the topic that that I thought we would focus on this week, and specifically because the U.S. Surgeon General just issued an advisory report on the risks of social media on young people. And basically what he said really supports the litigation that has been ongoing. It's pretty interesting. It's actually a 19-page report, and we will include the link to that. If you have, teens, children, I think, young adults in your home, I would definitely recommend you take a look at it. It's pretty scary stuff, and I think a lot of us have known that there are problems. But this is, a very credible source, obviously the top doctor in the country. The findings are that this frequent use can trigger changes actually in the amygdala and prefrontal cortex, making young people more sensitive to social rewards and punishments. I mean, it's actually changing their brains.
Really?
Yeah. So really serious. And I mean, I think we all know that it's super prevalent.
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers are like apparently 95% of teens use social media, and 40% of children 8 to 12.
Yeah, I mean, and this is what I was going to say too, is going along with those percentages is, yes, people have always known of the dangers of social media. Maybe not that it's actually changing your brain, but that there is risks going along with it, and it can be pretty negative, especially the younger you are. But, at the same time, with personal experience, you kind of handicap yourself socially by not participating in that. If you don't have an Instagram, if you don't have a Snapchat, Facebook, whatever it may be, TikTok, sometimes you kind of get left in the dust. You're on the outskirts. A lot of people will only communicate through Snapchat, or, you hang out with people that say, oh, did you see that person's story? Or, look at this TikTok, or, whatever it may be. And especially, I'm assuming in the younger ages, as it's becoming more prevalent to use these services or these apps, elementary, middle school, high school, it's even more, you feel that pressure to be part of the group.
Yeah. Well, I agree. And I don't think it's 100% bad. And it's not, and once you're an adult and your brain's no longer developing, it's a little bit different situation also. And, one of the things that the report says is it's a call to action really to the companies to not try to addict children and young adults to be more responsible, because there are positive aspects of it, like you said, and it can you can it's very social media basically, it connects you to other people, provides you with a lot of support sometimes, but the way that they're using it, they know, they're actually trying to get these kids and tweens addicted.
Yeah.
And they're using some pretty scary tactics to do that. And the thing about with children, there's certain things that shouldn't be shown to children. There's certain things that should not be fed to them, and it's a very curated feed.
Yeah.
What they send out. And one of the things actually that really struck me was, as far as the suggestions, was that, when you have, like, say, an influencer who's using filters and all of this, that it would have to be disclosed.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's, again, because people are looking at these very unrealistic images.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and especially teen girls are the ones who are really suffering the most, and they're seeing these, like, unbelievably perfect, impossible bodies that they don't have and that they can't have, and it's not real. I mean, there's all kinds of filters and I don't know, whatever else you call it, how they change these images.
Yeah.
And perhaps that should be a requirement, that somebody who puts that image out there has to tag that it is.
And these filters are getting insane. Like, they are pretty impressively just good at what they do.
Yeah.
When I first started using Snapchat, it was kind of the very basics, maybe a little bit more lighter, a slight filter, like a color change. But I know now, especially with TikTok and all these new filters, and I know that there's abilities to create your own filters. It's impressive the amount of changes that they can make. I saw TikTok like a few days ago, because I mean, I'm guilty of this as well. I'm on TikTok all the time, but there are a lot of people who do lives, and especially like females who do lives. So they'll just like sit in front of the camera, and you can gift them things, and that's what they get gifted. And especially in a lot of like third world countries, that's really common. And there was a TikTok of, it was a picture of like this perfect female face, and they turned just a little too much, and it was just a guy. Like, it was a guy that just had like a filter over it. And obviously he's not talking. He's just like kind of moving his head to music, and he just moves a little too much, and you can tell it's a guy because the filter falls off, but then he looks back at the camera straight on, and it goes right back.
Oh my God.
I mean, and when I say they can do some impressively deceptive things, it's good to the extremes at this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they just zoom in. The waist is tiny. The boobs are huge. I mean, it's not reality. But unfortunately, and again, at our age, we can recognize that. I mean, we could still feel bad about it, but I mean, we can recognize it more than, say, a teenager who, I mean, they're not mature enough to handle that.
Mm-hmm. And you're right with the curated feed. I mean, I'll notice sometimes where I'll be on my computer and I'll look up something. I'll look up maybe some new shoes or a certain brand, and then I'll hop on TikTok maybe later that day, and all of a sudden, what do you know? I'm getting a bunch of reviews for shoes or for similar products on my feed. And it's kind of scary, like even there was one time, and this is why I put, a little camera, what's it called? Camera cover?
Oh, the cover. Yeah. On your
Yeah.
computer.
Because I used to never do that. I didn't really think anything of it. I mean, I've heard stories about it with like the NSA and things like that, but I didn't really think much about it. And Tesla, I guess now. But there was one time where I was laying in bed, or not laying in bed. I just got out of the shower. I was sat in bed, and I grabbed a Q-tip, and I was, Q-tip in my ears, very satisfying straight out of the shower. And, I clicked on the next YouTube video after that, and the first ad was a Q-tip ad. And I'd never gotten a Q-tip ad ever before.
I've never even seen a Q-tip.
Me neither. No, seriously. I'm on YouTube every single day. I see the same ads all the time, and all of a sudden, the next video after I was watching one and like used a Q-tip, I get a Q-tip ad, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I didn't even say Q-tip. I was just watching a video.
It's not like saying, I'm cleaning my ear with a Q-tip. You're not gonna say it, but.
And then after that, I was like, "Okay, this is a little freaky." So I got the little camera. Cover.
Camera cover. Okay. Well, now I'm feeling like maybe I need to use it too. So, so we talked a little bit about this whole report that's come out from the Surgeon General, and that goes right into the multi-district litigation. So these cases, this has been going on for a while now, but these cases have been consolidated in Northern District of California. And the way that this lawsuit came about was that there was actually a whistleblower, a prior employee of Meta, who came forward and they had some internal documents and basically showed that they were aware of what they were doing and they were aware of the harm that they were causing, but they were choosing to continue to do these things and even to enhance them because they were making, $1 trillion. I mean, it's a $1 trillion company, so billions and billions of dollars from doing this. And of course they are trying to get people addicted. Yeah. I mean, if you're addicted, you're going to keep using the product. I mean, it's just like with the tobacco and all of that. But I mean, they actually do, it's called operant conditioning. And what they do is things like the likes. When you have something you have somebody like your post, you get a dopamine release in your brain. Basically, it's like euphoria inducing.
Yeah.
And then you do that again and again, and you keep getting that dopamine hit. And the problem is that when you do that, and this is the same with other addictive substances also, your brain gets so used to this excess stimulation that it takes more. It takes more and more to get that rush. And then over time, you don't even get a rush anymore. You just need to do that to feel normal. And then when people try to stop, they go through all of the same things that they go through with withdrawal or from other substances. I mean, they have the anxiety, irritability, insomnia, cravings. I mean, it's really, truly an addiction, and they have. They know this. I mean, they're that's the whole point. I mean, get people addicted, and they'll keep using your product.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because that is their product, right? What they're trying to sell is attention, and when they're selling it to marketers or to sponsors and advertisements, it's completely based off of how much time their users spend on the app. And so in order for them to make money, in order for them to be successful and beat out their competitors, they need their users to be on there even more, you know, as much time as possible. And something that it reminded me when you mentioned how, you know, the dopamine release, and they kind of get used to it and they need more and more, like very similar to a drug addict. There's Twitch streamers. You know, live streamers on Twitch, they stream video games and whatnot, and a lot of them start out and, you know, they get a few hundred, a few thousand, and they're super excited. But what you hear from the big streamers is, you know, they'll blow up, they'll go crazy, and for that month, maybe they get 20, 30,000 people. Every time they stream, they get, you know, these insane numbers, right? You could fill up a stadium with everyone that's watching. And some of them even break 100K. But then, you know, once things kind of die off or slow down, you know, slowing down meaning maybe reduce 50%. You're getting 100K every time, and then you start getting 50K, and then you start getting 30K. And that's still insane numbers, right? It's so crazy.
But it doesn't feel like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, and they'll say, like, they get depressed because even though they know that those numbers are crazy and that they should be very happy and they're making good money, it's just not the same as when they have, like, these insane, unreasonable numbers.
Yeah. Well, and then that's going to cause all kinds of problems with them. I mean, depression, anxiety, all of these things.
And I'm sure it's the same thing with, like, Instagram and likes. You know, you're happy getting a few hundred at first, you get a few thousand, nice. But, you know, I'm sure if you're an influencer and that's your main job and you start getting 20, 30K, if you all of a sudden get 20K instead of 30 or 40 on a picture, oof. That's game changing. That's gonna ruin your day. Maybe even
I'm
your
happy
week.
if I get 4 likes on something I post. Like, whoa, people like.
I know. I'm looking at some of our Facebook posts, our Facebook shorts. And I'm like, wow, 10 likes. That's nice. We got to keep that up.
Oh, that's a little scary. So one of the things about the litigation also, well, actually, let me back up a little bit because you used the term product, and I just wanted to kind of touch on the big issue right now in the litigation is whether or not the Meta, Facebook, Instagram, these social media platforms are products as opposed to services, because all of the laws that we're using and we're talking about with the failure to warn and all of this is based on product liability law. So that's kind of the first big step is this actually a product? But see, you didn't even know that, and you referred to it as a product, and it definitely feels like a product. So I'm pretty optimistic on that. They're trying to say, no, it's a service. And then the other thing on the lawsuit that I just wanted to say is that, you know, the lawsuit involves people who have been severely injured, and we're going to talk about some of the specific injuries that people have experienced, and they're making the claims. But the other thing that these lawsuits are about is changing the system and protecting people moving forward.
Yeah.
And there are things that can be done that can protect younger people. And some of those are, for example, limiting the hours that notifications are sent to minors. Well, first of all, actually, let me just back up and say, you know, minors shouldn't be using these. And they say, oh, well, you're not allowed to use it unless you're 13. But how do they find out if somebody's 13? They ask them if they're 13, and they say yes. So that's why these 8-year-olds are getting on there.
Well, I mean, and like I said earlier, it's like it's almost essential in a lot of friend groups and social
not
groups.
for 8-year-olds, and you know, and maybe it shouldn't be, and maybe that's up to the parents, but you know, because that's pretty darn young.
Yeah.
But so it needs to go back to them to have some safeguards to make sure that they aren't feeding this product to people who are 8 years old, who are super young. And again, even if they're 13, I mean, these notifications, it's another one of those things. They time how these notifications get out to make you feel like you need to jump on and you need to see things. So certain hours that minors should not be getting these notifications. They shouldn't be getting like poked and prodded to get on. Limiting limit what hours the minors can access it at all. Limit targeted marketing to minors. Again, we don't need to be marketing cool sculpting and plastic surgery and diet pills and all of these things to minors. And what we had talked about, require images by influencers to be identified when enhanced. So some of those things could certainly go a long way, I would think, in protecting.
Yeah, it sounds like there are steps that can be made on the side of the company. But something that I've noticed with a lot of these newer products coming out, it's an attention game. Every service or product, whatever you want to call it, is dying for more attention and more screen time, and that's just the way that it kind of is. And I do agree that there needs to be a lot more protections for minors. I'm kind of curious on how they go about that, because like you said, I mean, they ask if you're 13, and if you lie about it, if you say you're 18, then even if they implement all this, it still won't apply, because they're saying that they're an adult, and what else can you do other than send in what, you don't even have a driver's license, maybe your passport or something as a 13-year-old.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but I mean, once you are old enough to have a driver's license, and again, I'm not sure exactly what the answer is to that, but there could be ways, or having a parental, consent or something along those lines. Although I guess if you don't know they're minor, that's not really gonna.
I know, and it's tough, because I think, obviously it shouldn't all be on the parent, but it kind of is. You got to be aware of what your kid's doing on the apps, and how much time they're spending on it. And you hear this term a lot, iPad kids. And it's used on like people that, they're eating a meal and they need to watch something, or they're doing something, they need that kind of a constant attention, or their attention being brought or given somewhere.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's almost becoming culture, day-to-day culture.
Well, it is. So on the issue of parent responsibility, also the American Psychological Association has released their first ever social media guide for parents.
Good.
So let's put up a link to that as well. Hopefully there are some good suggestions. One of the things that has come up in these social media cases is that parents are oftentimes really surprised at how much activity is going on with their kids. I mean, kids are very sneaky. And then the other crazy thing is that, when we're interviewing these kids or the families, and we're asking, about their various accounts, I mean, some of them have like 30, 40 accounts. I mean, it's crazy. They have all of these different names and identities, and and kids are just sneaky. I mean, if they're not supposed to be doing something, they're going to try to find a way to do it. They're going to do it outside of the home. But I would definitely recommend, if you do have children or young adults in your home, to check out that report by the American Psychological Association.
Well, I'm sure too, as like an older parent, unless you're really a younger parent, you're not even aware of all the apps out there, and how much time people are spending on it, and how addicting it can be. And even kind of, like I said, how ingrained it is into culture now, especially the younger generation. I mean, you can go into a middle school and you see people doing TikTok and Fortnite dances. Trends.
I wouldn't even know what that was.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so it's hard to say, parents need to look out for this, but they don't even know what to look out for. They don't, not only do they not know the risks, they don't know what's actually going on, which makes it even easier for the kids to kind of sneak around.
Yeah. Well, and that was one of the things too, that parents now we didn't grow up with that. We didn't have it. So, I mean, I knew like a lot of things to look out for as far as the other things, non-social media things that I had done to make sure you might not be doing the same things. I knew the signs to look for. But, maybe when you have children, you'll be better prepared.
Yeah.
But, those of us who grew up before this, we were learning.
Yeah. Things are changing too. I don't know if you saw, Apple just had a big conference where they're releasing all their new products and new things kind of coming out, new iOS and whatnot. But the big product that they released,
Oh, the
the VR
VR. Yeah,
headset,
I did see that.
it's big news across Web3, across my crypto Twitter that I'm always on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty crazy that a big name like Apple's coming into it and making a big splash. I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy expensive.
I was gonna say, isn't it like several $1,000s
It's like
or something? I thought it was like
3,500
that.
roughly
Yeah.
around there,
Yeah.
37, something like that. But I mean, apparently the quality of it and what they're doing is really really high quality, and really good. I mean, maybe not worth the money, but
Well, or maybe it'd
maybe
be
it is.
fun
I
to
don't
like
know.
try it out. I bet there's like lines at the Apple Store now
Oh,
to check it out.
I'm sure, and I'm sure that's gonna kind of start a whole wave of VR. It already kind of VR was something that I felt like was very. I don't know. There's a stigma behind it, but when a big name like Apple comes in, it's
Yeah.
going to change it, and it adds up more opportunity for social media and this attention
Yeah,
game.
but see, this is a whole another thing that's going to be crazy that kids are going to be
Yeah.
exposed to this.
I
So.
mean, people are sitting on Snapchat and Facebook. Oh, next thing you know, they're going to be sitting on their VR headset, hanging out at the playground,
Oh,
hanging out at the playground, talking to the boys on the VR headset.
I can't quite picture this, but
Yeah.
okay. So just to kind of finish up on the social media cases, it is a multi-district litigation. This is a very active litigation. We are taking cases currently. The criteria is basically the person needs to have used Facebook or Instagram or both and started before they were 21. So in fact, we just got a call today with, 65-year-old woman and wanted to bring a case for her 35-year-old son. I was like,
Oh, well, I could do that. I was on Snapchat before I was 21.
well, okay. And you used it more than 3 hours per day.
Yeah, maybe.
I would say I think most people use it more than 3 hours a day. That's actually pretty minimal. And then the injuries are depression, anxiety, eating disorders, a lot of bulimia, anorexia, some really bad stuff there, body dysmorphia, thoughts of self-harm, suicidal ideation, and attempts at suicide, and ultimately suicide.
It's a lot.
So the very serious injuries, very serious situations, those are primarily the cases that we're filing right now. And of course, most of these cases, it is the parents that would be contacting if they're still minors. But this litigation is heating up, and then this report coming out, just really supports the case a lot. So that's something that's happening right now.
Well, that's a solid update, and it sounds like it's getting a little bit more attention as well as, I don't know what the word is, kind of just certification or validation that this is something that's really kind of going on, and to keep an eye out. And it's good that they're putting out the guides for the parents as well.
Yeah, because I mean, people are really at a loss. I mean, what
Yeah.
do you do? How do you do it? And hopefully the platforms will become safer. I mean, there may be regulations, who knows, but something needs to change because kids are really suffering right now.
Yeah. We have been going on for a little bit, so
have.
I want to kind of touch on questions before
Okay.
we close out. What kind of questions have we been getting from the audience? Have we gotten any?
Well, I actually got one in person the other night.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. I was actually at the Treasure. Well, so Tihan, an organization here in Tucson, put on a really great event. It was called Disco in the Desert. And I was talking to somebody, and actually just shout out to him, Will Dingledine. Do not make fun of his name. He said that he's...
I didn't say anything. If anything, I'd be offended that you even gave me that warning.
All right. Well, I'm just saying he said he had experienced some hassling. Anyway, really nice guy. Happened to be a realtor, and I actually might need him since I'm sick of this house. But anyway, we were just talking, and we were talking about the Chicken McNugget case. I'm telling you, that case it's never going to go away. And he was asking me about the McDonald's coffee case, and it's just interesting because, again, it was a situation where people just have such a really biased perspective. The media really did a disservice to that case. It was not a situation where this woman asked for all of these millions and millions of dollars. It really wasn't. I mean, literally, that was a case where McDonald's was well aware of the fact that their coffee was so hot that it had caused really serious burns, had been told and complaints had been made, and they were like, nope, we're making a lot of money on this coffee, and it just tastes better when it's really hot. That's how we're serving it. And then ultimately, this happened, and it was spilled on her thighs. She had to have surgeries. I mean, it was not just a little burn. The woman had permanent scarring. She had surgeries. And then the big issue really is that the amount of money wasn't about what her injuries were, and they were really serious. The amount of money had to do with how do you punish a corporation? What it's punitive damages, and how much money does it take to make a company stop doing something that they know is hurting people? And they use the number of like how much money they earned on selling coffee in one day. Yeah. I mean, so it sounded like this huge, crazy number. And it made people just get mad at lawyers and mad at plaintiffs and all of this. But again, if you want a company to not do something, I mean, if they just have to pay $50,000 for medical bills, they're not going to change anything. That's nothing.
Pennies to them.
It's just nothing to them.
No.
So if you want a company to stop doing something dangerous, you have to figure out how to hurt them.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of theories about how that could change. Could those punitive damages be not given to the plaintiff? Could those go to burn victims or those sorts of things? I mean, and that's a whole separate discussion. But again, it really, there's a big difference between the compensatory and the punitives. And so that was something we had talked about just at the event, and thought I would just address that one more time because it's coming. It's hot again in the news. Pardon the pun, but with the McNugget case,
well,
it's back.
Like you said, it's it has to do with the media, with the way that the story was told and the way it was presented to everyone, and I'm sure it did sound like very insane, crazy, unreasonable at times with the way that it was kind of cherry picking information, and it goes along with my conspiracy theory about mainstream media, being controlled.
That's right, I forgot.
Controlled by the billion-dollar companies, and if there's anyone that's got a lot of money, it's McDonald's. It's McDonald's.
Well, if they're charging $11 for a Big Mac, they've got a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money to buy out these media companies. Control what they say.
All right.
But I think we should probably close off on that. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we end up the show here?
No, I don't think so. We're going to next week be talking about the PFAS litigation. That's the forever chemicals. That's kind of hot in the news right now. It looks like there's a pending or a looming potential settlement. So that'll be our main topic. And then, of course, whatever interesting things we see in the news, and, come up with some questions or some really embarrassing, cringy moments that keep you up at night. We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, I might have to think of a few, depending on, if people like my story. But, with that being said, I think we're ready to close out. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in this week. We'll be back next week for some juicy info. Remember to subscribe, share.
Give us 5 stars.
Yeah. Check us out on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Instagram. We're on all of them.
We're everywhere.
Yeah. And TikTok, we got all the shorts coming up. But thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Prioritizing profits.
Dangerous drug and product cases.